Thank you very much. I appreciate each of you being willing to come and talk to us about these issues today. We measure a lot of things in this town, and appropriately so. We talk a lot about GDP growth, and what government might be doing to affect it. I think it's difficult to talk about our economic situation and our true economic potential, however, without addressing a number of other issues, things that are more difficult sometimes to quantify, things that are a little bit less obvious, things that account for the social and cultural state of American life. And I tend to think that these other less well measured, or at least less frequently measured and discussed topics are as important for economic growth and for the health of our economy and our country as anything else. So I've got a question for all of you. We'll start with Mr. Holtz-Eek and move our way across the table. In measuring our country's long-term viability, how important is the flourishing of America's associational life, or the social capital, that is the strength of families, the strength of communities, community cohesion, trust, and collective efficacy? What can you tell me about that?
I think it's incredibly important. We know from the data that there's a best practice in America, which is that a young person should go to school, graduate, get a job, get married, and then have children. And if one does it in any other order, it's a ticket one way to poverty. And so those things are at the foundation of economic success in the United States. We know also from the data, many studies done by a group led by a Harvard University professor, that mobility in the United States, broadly measured, hasn't changed much in the past 50 years. Social mobility, economic mobility. You might think it's not high enough, or you might think it's fine, but it hasn't changed much. But the geography of it has. And there are places in the United States where mobility has diminished and diminished sharply. There are places associated with less of those kinds of capital. So I think it's something that's very important, although, as you say, very hard to measure.
So last night I was at the STEP Awards, the Science, Technology, Engineering, and Production Awards that honors 130 women in manufacturing. And you get a first-hand view of just how important manufacturing is to the lives of these ladies and to their families, how proud they are of their accomplishments, and just how different it is. I took my 13-year-old daughter to be able to see just how you can be successful, how, again, manufacturing is that pathway to the middle class. And I think that we need to have more of that emphasis of stressing that women can be successful. Manufacturing can be that engine for growth, not just for the economy, but for your family and for your community. And I think that we've certainly have done that. And I think certainly timing-wise, it was good that I was just there last night.
Wonderful. Thank you. Mr. Hampton.
For me, I can just boil it down to personal type stories. Young lady came to us from Chicago who had 3 children, and she had no job and a husband in prison. And she had little, if any, education. We started her out in the assembly area of the company, and she had such a wonderful personality that we brought her into the front office, and my daughter Nicole took her under her wing and started training her how to use email and the like, and now she does all of our order processing and so forth, and makes in the area of $45,000 per year. And her family is now much more successful. Her husband's gotten out of prison, and the two of them have been reunited, and the program is working very, very good. But it's social, when you talk about social engineering, I think there's a lot manufacturing and companies can do by looking at people in a whole different way, and that is what they can contribute as opposed to what they cannot contribute. And we look at it in terms of what capabilities a person has, not what they don't have.
I agree. I think the civic associations and the informal connections are important. It provides for networks. It's a lot of social capital, provides informal mentorships. In addition, businesses also have invested in their communities, and it seems to me, at least today, less so than at times in the past. And that's an area where you can see connections in older industrial communities where there's not that civic engagement, not that civic capital.
Thank you. Thanks to each of you. I'm out of time, so I'll forego my other questions. Did want to let you know I released a report today titled "The Geography of Social Capital in America," and it presents a breakdown of social capital statistics broken down at the state and county level. I highly recommend it to each of you and to my fellow members of the committee.